Hey guys, so I thought I would do a walkthrough of my In Defense of Santa Fe Part 5 for anybody that's interested. Um, it's kind of a different thing. So my parts 1, 2, and 3 really kind of more hit on, research-based information and just kind of started to, communicate some of the things that I was seeing and wanted to make people aware of, at least as many people as would listen to me, as I've said before. I'm changing gears on part 5 because, and I'm going to change gears again, but I wanted to just do something simple. I just wanted to tell a story. Stories hit us differently than fact-based information. We are a complex human race. Some people more resonate with information-based stuff. Some people more with emotion-based stuff, and all of that's fine. But stories are important. Stories have been a part of humanity as long as we can see back. People tell stories. People make movies. People benefit from stories. And so I wanted to tell a story. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because I'm trying to bring some balance to the way that history is being looked at more recently, because it's kind of in style now, the fad to look at history as just like all negative. Everything's negative. And we too many times ignore positive balance from history too, because our past is kind of like our present is, which is like our future will be. It's mixed. Not everything is all amazing and not everything is horrible. It's mixed. The present is that way, and our past was that way too. And there have been some trends to look at our past as really just bringing out the negative and just focusing on that. And if we do that, everything in this world becomes bad. I mean, think about, some of the amazing cathedrals that are built around the world. Think about, some of these incredible buildings. Think about the pyramids, that were built. You can look at those amazing structures from the present and from the past, and you can look at those and you can say, these were built on the blood of people who died building this thing. They were built by people who were probably underpaid or maybe even slaves. For example, in the pyramids' case, and you can choose to see those all in a negative light. Even modern buildings, how much were these people getting paid? How many people died building this building? These people were underrepresented and were pushed around by their bosses, I'm sure, to some degree and stuff. Or you can go into those buildings and visit those places and just be like, my gosh, look what people can do. This is beautiful, or this is amazing. And we live in a world where both of those things can be true simultaneously. And if you focus just on one of those things, you're getting out of balance. It can both be true that there was an oppressed people group behind the pyramids, which was the Jewish people. But it can also be true that they accomplished an amazing feat by building those things. And so when we look back at our history, if we just cherry pick the negative things, we're going to come away with the idea that we need to erase all of those memories and monuments and celebrations and statues and things of the past. And that's destructive to us. That just hurts us. We need to have a more balanced perspective. And on the one hand, I don't want to sugarcoat the history either, because a lot of bad things happened. And so I'm telling this story, In Defense of Santa Fe Part 5, to try and bring some basic things back to remembrance. And, history is extremely complicated, and I'm doing my best to kind of simplify this in a way. Of course, I can't possibly cover everything that happened with the history of Santa Fe and with New Mexico, but I'm trying to lay a basic foundation. So let's go ahead and start watching this. I'm going to pause and interject along the way and just point out some things that I was thinking when I made it. So let's get this going. I wanted to put a table of contents in there because some of this is random, like this music video. it doesn't seem like it would be an appropriate place for a music video, but it is. There's just some of my branding logo there. Once upon a time, there was a great master and a great, great big house, a mansion actually. The master had built this mansion himself, and it was so grand. More rooms with huge spaces than you could count, as well as secret hiding places. It had massive windows everywhere that let in as much sunlight as possible and gave the house a bright and almost magical glow in the day. The mansion was indeed a breathtaking sight to behold. So I should just stop real quick and just say, if you haven't actually watched the part 5 just from beginning to end, you need to stop this video and go back and just watch the part 5. And then if you're still interested in a little bit deeper explanation, then come back. But I don't recommend that you watch this first. Watch part 5 first. Obviously, not everybody believes in God. I have plenty of atheist friends, and I think they're great. I believe in God. I am a Christian, and most people here that I'm speaking to in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a small handful of people that are going to watch this video, are Christian or Catholic. And so from my perspective, I'm obviously laying the groundwork for the fact that God made all of this. God made New Mexico. God made all of this land. It actually all belongs to Him. And what He made here is amazing. But the mansion is representative of New Mexico and Santa Fe, more specifically. One day, as the master was walking in his house and enjoying the product of his work, he looked around and said, "This mansion I've built is empty. I think I will take on a pet." And so the master came home with a puppy. The puppy, for a time, was the king of that mansion. He ate where he wanted, he slept where he wanted, he played where he wanted, and it seemed there was no rules, and for a good while, all was well. As time went on, the puppy grew and became a full-grown dog. Now, obviously, this is symbolic of the original Native American people that were here. And even that gets super complicated because Native American people are not all the same. There's various, tribes and a couple of different ways of quite a few different ways of life and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm simplifying for the point of the story. But early Native Americans migrated here such a long time ago. There is evidence that there was actually people here before them, which are known as the Plains people, that were either absorbed by Native Americans or wiped out by Native Americans. To my knowledge, we don't know the answer to that. But this is setting up the story for the fact that Native Americans were in New Mexico, for our purposes first. One bright and sunny day much later, as the master looked outside a window, he observed a different dog roaming around, carelessly exploring. He could see that the dog came from a bustling town from a faraway distance. It was impressive the dog was able to make it that far. As he watched, he noticed the dog was extremely curious, well past putting himself in danger. He appeared to have a great drive to explore everything he possibly could. The master thought to himself, "This mansion I have made is large enough for many dogs. Perhaps I will accept another." So the master left the choice up to the dog. He left the front door wide open, and if the dog came in, good. And if the dog wandered away to explore elsewhere, so be it.
After a few short minutes, the dog noticed the open door and smelled the food from inside the mansion. He quickly came inside, and so it was.
Now that is saying a few things. Number one, obviously, the new dog there, which I used a Doberman Pinscher for, is symbolic of Spanish explorers, early Spanish explorers. And really, there's a lot that's been said as far as they were just after gold and riches or something like that. But really, they were just exploring. That's what they were doing. Now, was there a handful after them that, maybe were preoccupied with, finding, gold or the Fountain of Youth? Sure. But by and large, that's not what was motivating the Spanish as a whole. They were literally just exploring, trying to find out what was out there. That was just in their hearts. And this scene also really kind of goes to the Christian belief that at the end of all things, God is aware of what's going on and he is ultimately in control. But at the same time, he does delegate to us some free will, which can get us into trouble. But that's what that scene's about.
Things were a little tense at first between the dogs. After all, they were extremely different. They looked different, they acted differently, and they had very different knowledge and skill sets. Original dog was friendly at first, then curious. The new dog was standoffish and a little bit more skittish. Normal common responses given the situation. Some time went by and
and that's obviously early, representative of early contact between Native Americans in general and the Spanish explorers, which was a little tense, but at first it wasn't like super bad. It was kind of, tense. It went downhill pretty quickly.
Strangely, the master of the house was no longer seen. He seemed to have gone away, but food and water were still put out, messes still got cleaned up, and later it was understood that the master had put managers in charge while he was away.
And this is just the human perspective that sometimes it feels like God goes away. Bad things happen, and we wonder why. And from a human perspective, sometimes it feels like, where'd you go, God? Because you've allowed, various things to happen, but it doesn't seem like you're around anymore. Obviously, he is. Again, this is just a human perspective, human Christian perspective.
To this day, the master has still not returned, but sometime before he left, he must have let more animals in because there were some others, but they were rarely seen and didn't affect the dogs' lives very much.
And these other animals are representative of just other peoples that have either come through New Mexico and Santa Fe or have moved here. Because as time has gone on, obviously, more people move in, and it's not just about Native American and Spanish people anymore. It's about everybody else.
Managers came and went. Most of the time, it was hard to tell if they were even around, as they were hardly seen. Some of the managers that came did engage the dogs and could be kind, but some were somewhat cruel, and sometimes strangely, just to one of the dogs.
So right there, managers, I'm talking about various different governors or authorities that have come in and set up shop, wanting to be or being or claiming or taking control and being in charge of things. And this is primarily the United States government, governors, various, even at times military leaders, and stuff like that. And the reason why I have a manager pointing down at the original dog is because the United States government has treated the Native American people like garbage. And that's why I said that they could be kind, but sometimes they were cruel, and sometimes just to one of the dogs because United States government historically has treated the Native Americans to a large degree, especially in the past, not so much now. But in the past, they've just treated them horribly, almost unforgivably horribly.
Sadly, things went downhill early on. New dog and original dog would fight. both using different hiding places in the mansion to strategically launch surprise attacks. The new dog came across as cocky and a know-it-all. He seemed to think that he owned the place. An original dog didn't think he had a right to be there at all. Even the presence of the new dog felt oppressive to him. Keep in mind, dogs are territorial, almost as bad as people are. On some occasions,
And obviously that's just, representative of the fighting that started early on. And I'm not really picking sides for this particular video. I'm just saying that there was problems and they came early and fast.
when the dogs would argue and fight, a blue jay bird would watch quietly, peering in from a high window.
Obviously, I'm setting up a villain.
The fights between the dogs got bad, brutal even, biting each other, drawing blood, and one or both of the dogs could be seen limping or bleeding often, both licking their own wounds. At times, the dogs fought even to the point of wanting to actually kill the other. Even to this day, there's conflicting accounts of which dog was more to blame in all of this. The dogs could be heard fighting at all hours of the day or night.
So I say that even to this day, it's not certain what happened. And the reason why is because, again, I'm not trying to pick sides as far as what happened in the history. I've talked to historians that are expert on Spanish history, and I've talked to historians that are expert on Native American history. And they do not see even a lot of facts, some facts the same way. And we don't have to. We don't have to be able to move forward, as brothers and sisters and with goodwill. We don't have to see everything exactly the same.
And where had the master gone? His voice was so wise and kind. He seemed to take such meticulous care of his great mansion he had made and everything inside, but now this. Was it that he was unaware of the fighting and the suffering? Or did he just not care? Or maybe he knew but was unable to do anything about it. Perhaps the master was not as powerful as he appeared to be at first, or perhaps not as loving as he appeared to be at first. It became hard to have faith in the master. For a time, things were very hard, and the mansion felt more like a dark, dangerous, and sad place. If only the master could see what had become of his wonderful, sun-filled mansion. Surely he would act. Surely he would do something.
And that's a little bit of a side note, but I wanted to put that in there because from a Christian perspective, oftentimes when hardship comes, when things happen that are just horrible, eventually you get to the point where you have to ask, does God even care? Is God here? Does he see me? Challenges like this are common to the Christian faith, and there are answers for all these things. And I'm not going into those right now. I'm just putting this in here because you can imagine when there was so much fighting and killing going on, and so much hardship, that had to have crossed the minds of so many of our ancestors experiencing that.
It took some time, but things eventually got a little better. One day, Original Dog had a sore by one of his eyes. New Dog noticed this and helped by licking the sore clean. Original Dog let him help. He was kind of desperate. That sore was pretty bad. It was a start. Soon after, the two dogs were able to establish rules. There would be one area where New Dog slept and a different area where Original Dog slept for security and privacy. There was also a common area.
And obviously this speaks to some of the boundaries and kind of rules that were starting to be agreed on early early. The Spanish abided by something called the Law of the Indies. And so they were not even allowed by the church or by Spain to just go in and take over areas where the Native Americans were occupying. And so this kind of speaks to kind of some of the early boundaries that they were setting.
Areas where either could hang out and it'd be fine with the other. One night, as Original Dog decided to lay down for his evening sleep, he thought about how things seemed to be feeling better in the mansion. He missed the master, but was feeling better about the new dog. As these thoughts were going through his mind, he happened to notice some of the scars on his legs and paws from fights from New Dog, and he felt a wave of sorrow and sadness. He wondered if New Dog felt the same, or if he really even cared. At the same time, in a different room, New Dog wondered if there would ever be a time when they could both call the mansion home and be okay with it. Maybe he should just continue exploring outside and move on elsewhere. Then, one day, there was suddenly a loud boom, boom, more strange noises, then knocking on the front door. Both dogs were startled and jumped to their feet and ferociously fired off bark after bark. They prepared themselves for an intruder that could come in at any time. Both dogs held their fighting stance, laser focused on that front door, ready for battle, still with the most vicious growls and barks they could muster. After a while of this, the noises stopped. The dogs still waited, listening intently. They must have scared off the intruders. Old Dog and New Dog felt something that they had not really felt before, a sense of pride that they were able to defend their master's property, and also a feeling of teamwork. They acted in step with each other, and they both realized that had that intruder broken in, they would have brought him down together and defended each other if necessary. For the very first time, the mansion felt like it belonged to both dogs, regardless of which one the master had moved in first. This was a defining moment in the relationship between the dogs. It wasn't long after that they started napping together.
Okay, so obviously in the story, that's just a car that drove up and honked. I imagine maybe it was a delivery, somebody looking for someone at the house or something like that. But from the dog's perspective, that was a major threat. And you know how dogs are. If you have a dog, someone rings the doorbell, somebody comes to the door or something, and they act like it's the end of the world and they need to kill something to defend the house or something like that. So I'm kind of playing off that. But what that symbolizes in the story is real threats that happened to, the ancestors of Santa Fe, New Mexico, that they had to face together. And I should make a distinction right now. So when I'm saying, the Native American Indians are representative of, old or original dog, I'm primarily talking about the peaceful Pueblonians. I'm talking about the Native Americans that were attached to the land, that farmed the land. I'm not talking about some of the tribes that were more predatory, that were more nomadic, that weren't settled. Because they originally came, I believe, more kind of from the Dakotas area. As they explored themselves and went south, things were drier. It wasn't like it was so green and lush and rivers and stuff that they were used to up north in what we would call, now, the Dakotas and Canada and other places. So when they came down here, it was a lot harder for them to survive. And so what some Native American tribes did was they would just loot and kill the peaceful, settled Native Americans that were living in this area. I mean, if you want to talk about murder, slavery, theft, wiping out, the peaceful Native Americans here, I mean, that was happening over and over. And so a lot of people make the mistake when they think of Native Americans, they kind of think of kind of like a Disney spin where all Native Americans lived in harmony and everything was great. And that's fictitious. That didn't happen. And so Spanish Spanish ancestors and explorers early on saw that, and they early on seeked to ally themselves with peaceful Native American Indians. And they faced a lot of hardships that caused them and forced them at certain points in time, a little bit here, a little bit more there. And of course, I'm speaking in general, very general terms, where they kind of had to be on the same page. And sometimes that was from other tribes that were coming down looking for trouble. Sometimes that was drought. Sometimes that was disease. Sometimes that was just surviving. Native Americans taught the Spanish a lot about how to farm here where it's dry, because they had gotten good at it. And so there was some common foes that they fought together, and that did help the situation sporadically through the years.
Sharing food bowls, sharing nice sunny spots to relax in, and even playing together. Sometimes they would run around the whole house exploring and showing each other playthings that were found. Hiding spots that used to be used to attack the other were now used for play attacks. It was a favorite thing for them to pretend to argue and fight over toys and bark at each other and get all excited. They both completely forgot about the scars they had given each other. This went on for many days.
So I'm just going to give some just real kind of things in my mind that I was thinking when I wrote this scene is other Europeans that came from Europe, the English and, various others, they had rules that you could not intermarry with Native Americans. The Spanish had no such rule purposefully. Intermarriage was encouraged. And so there was a lot more interplay in those cultures more than the others early on. And that's part of the reason why, because to some degree, they were even marrying each other. One thing that a lot of people don't even realize about Don Diego de Vargas, whose statue was recently taken down, is he was actually the godfather of 3 Native American little girls. And so these cultures started blending in very close and very sensitive ways. And that is often overlooked. So when the statue of Don Diego came down, they were saying the worst things about him, things that were completely untrue, but imagined, like, oh, he was, raping grandmothers and crazy, horrible things like that. And nothing could be further from the truth. And if you actually look at what was happening on the ground, some of it was really, really intimate beginning of blendings of cultures. Now, not all of it was, of course. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, but again, I'm trying to remember the good things as well. So that's what I was thinking when I wrote this scene.
Over even more time, Original Dog's feelings that he had been intruded upon faded into an appreciation that in many ways his life was actually better than before the new dog came. As a matter of fact, Original Dog even began to celebrate New Dog's anniversary of coming to the mansion alongside New Dog.
And that can be representative of plenty of things, but one of the things I was thinking there is obviously the Santa Fe Fiestas.
Neither dog even seemed to realize what an amazing step forward this was. It was just natural. Learning love and respect through hardship can be a brutal teacher, but the results can be so sweet. Things were about to change again, although neither dog knew it. It was a beautiful afternoon, and Original Dog woke up from a nap he had just finished in his favorite sunny spot. He yawned a big, wonderful yawn, and as he looked up midway through the yawn, he saw a bluebird sitting in the window above him. He jumped to his feet and started barking. The bluebird tweeted, "Why are you barking, Original Dog? I'm your friend." Original Dog said, "Friend? I don't know you." Bluebird said, "I've been watching you. I know that you are the rightful dog of this mansion, and that New Dog is not." Original Dog said, "Well, it's not really like that anymore. We've become friends." The bluebird said, "Friends, you say? When was the last time you saw the scars on your body, on your legs and paws from what New Dog did to you?" Original Dog replied, "Well, yes, there are scars, and sometimes they still hurt me." Bluebird tweeted, "I'll bet they do. I saw how vicious he was coming in here, acting like he was in charge and pushing you around. So tell me more about how those scars of yours still hurt." Original Dog replied, "Well, they hurt me when I go to sleep and when I first wake up, but really, I could have been a whole lot nicer myself at the beginning, and I gave him plenty of scars too. So I'm okay with everything." Bluebird responded, "I think you should take another look at those scars. I think you should rethink all this. New Dog is not your friend. I think he came here to kill you. I'll bet he still would if he could. You should watch out." And then the Bluebird flew off. The next day, as Original Dog was eating breakfast, New Dog came and started eating too. This had become a normal thing for them to eat breakfast together. For the first time in a long time, Original Dog felt uncomfortable, and he walked away, leaving his breakfast only half eaten. Over the next few days, Original Dog and New Dog were kind of off somehow, and they both felt it.
So Bluebird is representing individuals and groups that I've documented in my past videos, and plenty that I haven't, that are those ones that I'm telling you about that just seem to look at history just through negative eyes. And to some degree, they have some voice with some current Native Americans, and in the past have. And you know, when you bring up only the negative of old stuff, it kind of makes you even question what's going on today. So
Original Dog thought long and hard about what the Bluebird had said. And speaking of the Bluebird, Original Dog saw him on the shoulder of one of the new mansion managers, talking to him. Shortly after that new manager is representing Alan Weber, who is the current mayor of Santa Fe. And this scene in particular is talking about the communications between some local hate groups and the mayor, who appears to see things the same way as far as just looking at the Spanish past as just all negative and just all bad. You know, and so, you know, that's kind of what that is. He saw the manager kick New Dog, and New Dog growled back at him.
Now that is representing Alan Weber speaking and striking out against whatever he can, at least the way I see it, regarding the Spanish past history, even current celebrations. You know, plenty of things that he said. And of course, I've documented so much of this in my In Defense of Santa Fe Part 3. So if you want more specifics on why I'm portraying Alan Weber, the 43rd mayor of Santa Fe, is kicking New Dog, representing the Spanish people and history, because in my view, he has at least done that.
Original Dog had conflicting feelings when he saw New Dog get kicked. Part of him was angry that new manager was picking on his friend, and part of him felt like New Dog deserved it. That same day, Bluebird showed up again when no one else was around. Bluebird said, "Hey, Original Dog, we need to move fast. New manager agrees with us that New Dog is bad. It's bad that he came. It's bad that you have to share anything with him. You deserve this house, not him. We need to take it back for ourselves completely. We even need to remove his pictures. I also have many of the other newer animals in the house that agree with us about New Dog." Original Dog said, "Hold up for a second. I never said I agree with you. You make some good points, but I'm not completely sure about all this." Bluebird replied, "Well, I've got a lot of work to do driving out this oppressive New Dog. I'm going to loudly tweet about all of the evils this New Dog did to the whole mansion, and you should help me. I'm doing this for you after all." And with that, Bluebird flew into the rest of the house, tweeting as loudly as he could to the rest of the house and mansion and animals, doing his best to conjure up as much malice and hate as possible against Newer Dog, making up stories and exaggerating the worst times in the past, and spreading that to anyone in the mansion that would listen. New Dog ran into the room where this was happening and growled at Bluebird. A few other animals that were much newer than even New Dog came out and started making noise at New Dog and harassing him.
So at this point, Bluebird is just, hate groups, local hate groups that have done many things to sow division in our city and in our state. And I could go on about what all of this means in specifics, but just to get the beginning of a taste of it, I throw most of that in Defense of Santa Fe Part 2.
Even the new manager joined in, starting to repeat things the Bluebird was saying, calling the New Dog a murderer and much more. From across the room, New Dog barked at Original Dog, and he said, "Don't believe him. I've seen what he's planning. Bluebird is trying to make us hate each other so that he can use this to his advantage and take over everything. Trust me, friend. Kick him out. This isn't going to end well for either of us if we allow ourselves to be divided. Just as we have fought off enemies before, we must do so again now." As the Bluebird flew further into the house, tweeting away and making marks on some of the walls and causing damage.
Marks on the walls and damage and stuff like that is some of the literal things that have happened, like our monument, our soldiers' monument getting attacked, like the removal of La Entrada in the fiestas, like not that was falls at the feet of that. It doesn't necessarily, but it partially does. Also, again, the statue of Don Diego de Vargas going away and the attempt to go ahead and continue this thing over and over. So that's what I mean by the damage.
He accidentally dropped a note. Original Dog saw it, opened it, and started to read. What he found shocked him.
And that note is representing, a lot of these hate groups' websites. And it's not just these hate groups, but it's also a handful of professors at UNM that have been very active in this stuff. Some of the leaders of some local hate groups like Red Nation are or have been recent professors at UNM. And so they spew their hate there and, program so many of our young minds to have really bad history and to some degree a bad and even, I would say, hateful way of looking at a lot of things. And so the note represents their writings, their websites, and some leaked information that wasn't ever supposed to see the light of day, that basically just talks about their plans and their philosophy and all of this, just like in plain sight. Like they say what I'm saying. I'm not accusing these groups of anything that they haven't admitted to.
He read all about how Bluebird and new manager had conspired to make New Dog look as bad as they could, even outright lying about him. It laid out their plan to make him look like a devil to the inhabitants of the whole mansion. But even worse than that, Original Dog read how Bluebird actually hated just about everything in the mansion and wanted to throw out everything inside and dominate the animals and even the managers. He wanted to change the mansion completely to be only for him and was using the other animals and new manager for his selfish ends.
And I am putting a lot of these, I would say hate groups or individuals in the same bucket. They don't all think the exact same thing. And some of them are worse than others. So, but in general, that's what this is.
Bluebird seemed to hate and oppose anyone and anything that disagreed with him. He told some small parts of truths only for the purpose of concealing greater deceptions. True masters of lies always weave in parts of the truth into the fabric of their deceptions. with so much going on, it seems true peace will never return to the mansion again.
So I'm not going to go through my kind of rant at the end. You can hear that. I will talk a little bit about a promise made, a promise kept, because the lyrics to this song are very, very simple. This is my wife, Diane, who's singing it, and she does have an amazing voice. But a lot of the lyrics are singing about remembering, about a promise made, a promise kept. And that's all trying to jar our memories, because, you know, when Don Diego de Vargas came to retake Santa Fe in the late 1400s, and he did it peacefully, he met with Native American leaders before he came in, and they, you know, hashed out terms. And he made a promise. He made a promise to La Conquistadora, who is Mary, the mother of Jesus. And my understanding of this is to basically God as he understood God. And he was just really, really wanting and praying that this reentry into Santa Fe would go well. I mean, his life was depending on it. And his promise was that if it would go well, and that if it would be peaceful, and that if it would be the beginning of a new start, and all the good things that he had intended, that he would promise to celebrate this on a yearly basis. And that became our fiestas. That became our fiestas. The fact that we celebrate our fiestas every year is a direct consequence of that conquistador, Don Diego de Vargas, coming back in and resettling Santa Fe and being able to pull it off peacefully. And so this song is about that. I'm not going to play it for you right now. You can go to the video and see it. I'm also going to put the video out just by itself. So I'm just going to fast forward through that. And then, of course, I put a simple analogy key there at the end that doesn't go into too much depth, but it kind of goes into the main parts of what means what. So there you go. There's your walkthrough. If you have any questions about it, or if you have anything that you want to comment, or if you think I'm wrong on something, that's all fine. Feel free to, leave a comment or send me a message. Again, my heart is to jar people's memory to more of a balanced idea, more of a balanced story of the origins of Santa Fe in New Mexico. So anyway, hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for listening.